Welcome back to the breakdown. Today we're going to be taking a look at the big question of the day. How often should we be replacing these smartphones or your cell phone in general? Now, long gone are the days where your phone was just a phone. I texted, I messaged, and made some phone calls on it, right? Well, now they are increasingly becoming an important part of our everyday life. They control our homes, our lights, they got our schedules on them, and often they are our primary way of keeping in contact with people. Through them, not just by phone calls, but by email and more. There was a study recently that increasingly Americans are foregoing having laptops and desktops and having a phone or a tablet. And tablet markets are actually shrinking as phones become bigger and more powerful. More and more people are just getting a phone to answer emails, make video calls, and do more. And that works great, especially if you don't have to work from home like I do. But that raises the question, how often do you replace this, right? Is it really worth it to get the new phone every year? Is it necessary? What are the signs that say you're ready for a new phone? We're going to dive into all that in this video, hopefully help you make a decision on when is the right moment to pick up a new phone. When's the time to not? Because let's be honest, these things are expensive. Alright, first though, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. It really does help us because it lets YouTube know you enjoy what we do here. Hopefully we can help you learn something new today about smartphones, tomorrow about who knows what. So make sure to check out our other videos too. I would really appreciate your support. Alright, phones are increasingly an important part of what we do every day. Now for me, I've run my whole business through this. I checked email, I've actually wrote and edited posts on the phone, and more. If you've never edited a post or wrote a post on the side of a road, you've probably never been a reporter before. But how often do you replace it? Well, honestly, you really don't need to replace it every year. Increasingly, the improvements on smartphones are very small. Now, there are always cool new features every year that they try to do to pull you into buying new ones. Apple is reportedly working very hard to try to convince people not to hold on to their phones, as Americans hold on to their phones longer. On average, it's about 2 years. In a quick survey of all the viewers here over on my Twitter account, LukeBK, link in the show notes if you want to follow me on Twitter, there everybody told me about 2 to 3 years on average they update their phone to a brand new phone. Is that a good time frame? Well, yeah. There's a few important things you need to look at when deciding to upgrade. Number one, is there really a feature that you can't live without? For example, when 5G and especially 4G came out, I upgraded right away because I wanted that faster data. I wanted to be able to quickly, for my work, be able to get to my data a lot faster than 3G did. So for me, for work purposes, that upgrade was worth it. But past that, I've actually been relatively going on about a 2 to 3 year thing. About every other smartphone generation, I pick up a new one. Are there times where I'd love to have a new feature? Sure is. Increasingly though, the features are pretty small. A little bit better battery life, maybe a little bit brighter screen, maybe a tiny bit resolution. I honestly think we're at the point with the screens that where the resolution of them doesn't really make a big difference anymore. We can't really tell a big difference when you're streaming video that's capped at 720p anyways. But the few other things to look for. Number one is battery life. If your phone is increasingly losing battery, it may be a good time to upgrade. Over time, phones lose battery life. Now, a few things that impact it. Being crazy hot, leaving your phone in direct sunlight and more will, over time, and even immediately, affect the ability of your phone to hold a charge. Crazy cold will do the same. If you live in Michigan and you drive a smart car, you probably have noticed that in the winter you get a lot less miles when it's very cold out of your battery. Same thing's true with your phone. You lose battery life with that. But overall, on average, if you're noticing battery performance goes down. Now, I find that the battery performance in my phone, being a heavy user, every about 2 years, will get to the point where I start thinking it's unacceptable and I need to upgrade. So keep that in mind. About every 2 years for battery. So we're on 2 years. The other thing is the physical condition. Nowadays, it can be kind of expensive to repair a broken phone. I think we all have seen our friends with cracked phones and more. And it definitely, when you break your phone, it could be a good time to upgrade and look into that. And the last thing to consider here is OS support. Now, most smartphone makers support their phones for about 2 to 3 years with updates. Not all, but when looking at the big ones like Samsung, the Pixel brand, the iPhones, and more, about 2 to 3 years I find is the average for update support to get all the new software features. So when you look at that, battery life lasts about 2 years before you start really noticing a decrease. Software updates last about 2 years to 3 years, depending on your brand. Some last longer, some last less. Just keep that in mind. And the durability, the features on the phone. Now, none of that really matters if, like I said, you're in a position like I was, where 4G was such a great feature because I used my phone for a lot of data to get work data back and forth, that upgrading to 4G when it became available was instantly worth it for me. So keep that in mind. So how much do you pay? Well, right now they say the average smartphone cost is about $600. You can get a lot higher phones, you know, the high-end iPhones, the high-end Pixels, the high-end Samsungs cost a lot more. But there's a lot of cheaper phones out there. Increasingly, let's be honest, the Pixel 4a, for example, is a basic version of the Pixel phone. For most people, that's a very good phone. If you're somebody who's just checking Facebook and making a few phone calls and watching some YouTube videos, do you really need the highest end? You don't, to be honest with you. If you're somebody like me who wants the massive amount of storage because I want to put a lot of data on this, I want to make sure that when work calls, I got what I need here when I need it, then maybe a little higher end is important to you. So keep that in mind. But keep in mind, about $600 is the average cost. So if you're upgrading every year, $600, $600, $800, and more. They say over the next 4 years, the average price of a smartphone will move up to be about $800. So keep that in mind. Is it worth it to upgrade? That's something you gotta ask yourself too. But keep in mind, a few things to look for in new phones. Right now, I would consider buying a new phone, 5G being important. Even if you don't use it now, if you're holding on that phone for 2 to 3 years, in 2 to 3 years, 5G is going to be in most areas of the United States. I know they have nationwide 5G now in some networks. You know, there's the arguments that real 5G and more, but over the next few years, there will be 5G, good 5G in for most Americans and most population centers, most airports, and more. So I would definitely get 5G. I would increasingly consider how much storage you have. As apps get bigger and bigger, storage becomes more and more important. You know, these feature-rich apps that do a lot take up more space. App size on phones has dramatically increased over the last 10 years, and I expect that will continue. I really do think that we're getting closer to a point where phones will increasingly become what you use it for. Now, I'm excited about some new technologies coming in phones to keep an eye on. Number one is graphene batteries. These are batteries made out graphene, and they allow much better charge. A few important things about these new batteries: they're actually coming out in some Samsung phones in Korea this year, but they charge in a fraction of the time. They hold their charge a lot longer, and per kind of square inch, they can hold a much larger charge, which means that one of the big problems with phone batteries right now is the issue of having to continuously put newer and bigger batteries in it to try to give you better battery life, bigger screens. These new graphene batteries won't do that, or won't need that, because they can hold a lot more charge in a similar space. So keep that in mind. So look for 5G, look for the ability to have a lot more storage, and if you're waiting another year or two, keep an eye out for graphene batteries. I expect those to probably in the next 2 to 3 years start appearing here in the US on many affordable phones. Of course, they'll start off on the very high-end expensive phones and then work their way down. So keep that in mind. All right, so that's the video for today. How often do you update your phone? Let me know. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, hit that thumbs up. It really does help us. Check out our Discord group. We got a free group where people can chat together about these videos, about life in general, about technology. I'd love to hear from you. I'll put a link to that free chat app down in the show notes down below. Also, we got a weekly podcast. I'll put a link to that in the show notes too, where I talk about technology, life, and a whole lot more every week. Thanks for your support. I really appreciate it. We'll be back with another video real soon.